I'm Whitney Baker, coach, facilitator, meditation teacher, and writer. Electric Ideas is for women, especially mothers, who are done disappearing inside their responsibilities. If you're holding everything together but running on empty or feeling disconnected from your needs and desires, this is a place to come back to yourself. If you're ready to feel alive again in the messy middle of real life, you're in the right place. Let's spark something. Welcome back to Electric Ideas. I'm your host, Whitney Baker. Any of you who've been part of the Electric Ideas community for a while know that I am careful about how I talk about time management and productivity. The reality is that we all want to contribute our gifts to the world, and I want to see women do big things. Also, as adult women, especially mothers, we have practical responsibilities and things we need to get done in our days, in our years, and in our lives. However, we do live in a world that often expects and asks an unreasonable amount of mothers. So I want to make clear that when I talk about time management, it's because I think there are real, true strategies and approaches that will help you have more headspace, that will help you live with more intention, and also make sure you're showing up for the good stuff in life, the rhythms and the activities and the people and places that energize you. A lot of women wait until the work is done to get to the good stuff. But guess what? We know, especially in motherhood, the work is never done. So as you're listening to this conversation and applying it to your life, I invite you to think about tending to your needs and desires, not as a cherry on top of a hard work Sunday, but more as something central, something foundational, something that everything else radiates from. I am so delighted to have Ronna Belinky, founder of Workflows by Ronna, join me on today's show because she is in the She Gets It camp. She treats time management as self-compassionate, not a constant push towards more self-optimization. Ronna is full of helpful tools to help women clear the mental load and create systems so that they're not reinventing the wheel and feeling scattered. All of her work is anchored to helping women feel more calm, organized, and present at work and at home. And I don't know a single mother who wouldn't want to raise their hand for a little more of that. It is so easy in our journey of life and motherhood to get stuck in a state of reactivity, feeling like we're just putting out fires and reacting, and in this kind of state of overwhelm and feeling overburdened. This conversation is going to empower you. You're going to learn a couple of easy, simple tools to support you, and you're going to leave feeling inspired. I just know it. So let's dive in. Hi, Ronna. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I want to start with something you've written, a quick quote, and it says, "When we're exhausted, overextended, and busy being busy, nothing actually gets done or done well." So you've described periods of past versions of Ronna where you were in this push, go, say yes mode. And sometimes the weekends would come and you would just crash and cancel plans. So what do you wish that past version of yourself would have understood sooner?
Great question. Not everything has to be done today. Slow down, prioritize, figure out what's important and what's not important, and take a breath and really think through what are my priorities, what actually needs to get done today, and what can I let go of.
I love that invitation to slow down because especially in our modern digital world, women are trying to do a lot. Add in being a mother. And I had a client recently say it felt like she was playing whack-a-mole. And that's kind of that frantic energy that I see a lot of women living in. I knew one of the reasons I really wanted to connect with you on the show is because when it comes to talking about time, we approach it from different backgrounds, but I know we both agree that when we are able to slow down, we stop letting that urgency make decisions for us. Can you speak into that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's partly that. And I think part of what you said was you talked about reactivity. And I think part of it is also being proactive instead of reactive. And that is exhausting. And it takes so much energy out of you. And I always say parenting is hard enough. Make the planning easier because just being a parent is hard enough. So make this part easier. And I really believe you can because I've done it myself.
That's interesting because I do feel like sometimes even now, I think we're a little bit in this bro optimization. Even the word productivity is a little bit of a word that I don't always use. But ultimately, we want to do things. We want to share our gifts. But I think that your philosophy is more in doing it in a way that gives us freedom. It's not like planning is punishing us. That's a nuanced like shift for a lot of women. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I love the word productivity, but I always pair it with sustainability
Mm.
because I think that you can be productive and truly take care of yourself. And that's why I always talk about compassionate time management. And I believe in both. So I understand that people have a hard time with productivity because you think productive equals hustle. And it doesn't have to be that way. And I think that when you plan ahead, you acquire the freedom to be present in moments that you might not have been present for before. For example, I'm a planner, and every Friday morning, my non negotiable is doing stand up paddleboard yoga. And I'm able to be present in that moment because I've been proactive and I've planned for it. I've planned ahead, but it's not in a rigid way. It's for me to be able to have freedom to do the things that I love. Not that my business isn't something that I love because I do love it and I love planning for it because it brings me a lot of joy. But it allows me to be present in moments that if you haven't planned, you won't be able to be as present for. And I think that being productive can also mean taking care of yourself. And for me, that's what it means.
What's coming up for me is, whether you're a type A or a type B, I think when we get to midlife responsibilities, including motherhood, no matter what, there's always going to be lists and demands. And so you're telling me that you use planning to carve out sacred space for your non-negotiables. And that's very empowering to me. That's not planning to get more stuff done. So when somebody is like having that thing, that nourishing thing that they're just not getting to, because that also starts to like eat at us, right?
Uh-huh.
When someone is having that happen, which is so common in motherhood, it's like I think half the time we know what's good for us, but it's just like, when are we doing it? What's some advice to make sure we're actually making a plan?
Plan ahead for it and actually plan to do it if you can first before you get other things done. So I exercise first thing in the morning. Yes, I'm an early morning riser. It's my nature. I'm not, and I don't say would never tell anybody to get up early to exercise unless it works for them. But I take care of myself and I do that. And things like reading, which also bring me joy, I do first and then I get things done. So I know that I've already taken care of myself. So I can be more productive instead of rewarding myself for being productive by giving myself something that I enjoy doing. I feel like a lot of people don't talk about this.
I love that you brought that up. I recently went to a seminar about joy, and this woman recommended doing 5 things that bring you joy before noon so that when things derail, your capacity is higher. And I feel like I'm just picturing you as having, exercised, showered, maybe gotten a little paddling in, and then something derails your day. Your ability to stay stable in my mind just feels a lot different, right?
It's gotten a lot easier. You're absolutely right. And I think it's gotten a lot easier as I've gotten older. I think that the more compassion I have with myself, the easier that gets and the easier pivoting gets because we all need to pivot because things don't always go as planned. But I can't even tell you how many of my clients feel so much shame and guilt around the fact that they aren't able to plan correctly, whatever that means, or they're not able to think ahead. And I like to take all that shame out of it.
That's interesting because I feel like there is, especially in motherhood, if I had a dollar for every time a mother has been like, I just feel like I can't get my act together, and then they're beating themselves up, part of it is this planning stuff is a skill. And some of us aren't taught it, right?
Are any of us actually taught it? I don't think so. I know I wasn't taught how to plan.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think any of us are. And I think that I think you're right. It's a skill. And people don't, it's like getting stronger at the gym. It takes practice and time. You have to put the work into it. But I don't think that I think that the work that I try to teach my clients is simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. And I know they can do it because I've done it. Like these are all things that I've tried for myself. I used to think everything needed to get done today, and I've practiced a lot, and it's a lot of self-talk too and compassion, but I've gotten better at it because I've taken the time to work at it. And a lot of people don't want to put the work up front because they think it takes a lot of time, but it actually saves you so much time and energy in the long run. And I think we're all looking for more energy.
I know that a lot of your philosophy was inspired by your work in TV sitcom production. I think you might have even worked on Will and Grace, right? That's
I
very
did.
fun. I picture that environment being unpredictable and fast paced, not unlike lots of modern motherhood lives. So, what did that experience teach you about productivity and how has it informed what you teach your clients?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it was hustle culture. It was very hard. It was a lot of work. We had to manage multiple things because we'd be working on a show while wrapping it, working on two pilots at the same time. And I needed to learn how to be productive, but also very organized. So I remember the first job that I was in, it was an administrative role. I wasn't a production assistant, doing errands and all that. And I had a bunch of post-its around my workspace, and the assistant accountant came up to me and said, "You're going to need to have a system for that." But no one taught it to me. So I created my own systems. And a lot of these systems were repeatable because we shot an episode every week and it was the same process each time. Yes, we would have to pivot. Yes, there'd be set changes and other things like that. But I really learned how to roll with the changes and also create processes that didn't reinvent the wheel every time we did the same thing. And I think that that was a really big key in what I didn't know then that I'd be teaching people how to do now.
What's coming up for me is that, I read a lot and talk about the mental load of motherhood a lot. And having these external systems really gives a sense of calm because you've got so much out of your mind and you're like, okay, I have this system and support. And kind of like you said, it gives you time and energy back if you're not always like, okay, when am I going to do that again? So, what is like a place to start if people feel like maybe they need to blow the dust off of their organizational system and like give themselves a boost for how they're approaching their day to day and their weekly visions of planning for their lives?
I would start by doing a brain dump. And I think that brain dumps are very underestimated. Get everything out of your head and then figure out how to organize and pace it, because I think that when everything is in our head, like you said, it's very overwhelming and it also depletes energy from us. And I think that once you have it all down on paper, on your computer, wherever, whatever works for you, and then you organize and you pace it, it just takes so much off of your mind. Like that mental load just is able to disappear because you know you have a reliable place for it and you've planned for it and you've thought ahead. And again, it doesn't have to be in a rigid way, but that's basically all the processes that I teach, whether it's for people's professional life or their personal life, is documenting everything, organizing it, and pacing it. So you don't feel like you need to get everything done today. And also so your mind has a reliable place so that when you start, you don't have that moment of worrying about you forgot something or when you're going to do it because you've already figured that out. Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
it makes a lot of sense. I love the idea of women having more headspace and just offloading some of this decision fatigue that is documented by research. It sounds excellent. You brought up the word pacing, and I'm so glad you did because I love big ideas. I love women who decide they want to learn French or, start a new business or do whatever. But, regardless of how we operate, it's very easy to just get consumed and then go through that peak and burn. What's your best advice, whether it's personal or professional, of how to pace something so it's more sustainable, like you said?
Great question. So when you are overwhelmed with a big project or a big task that has many moving parts, the first thing that you should do is break it down. Little tasks are a lot easier, even if they're difficult. They don't have to be easy tasks, but small tasks are easier to tackle and then feel motivating and like you're on a trajectory of getting something big done than looking at one looming project and not understanding what the parts are for it. Just by getting that down again on paper, on your computer, whatever works for you, and breaking it down and then setting deadlines for yourself. So I always tell clients to actually set imaginary deadlines if you don't have a real one. And
Yeah.
think about the time, think about your weeks and how they look. So if you're going on vacation this week, don't plan as many things to do. Or if it's Maycember, mayhem, don't plan a lot during those times. Look ahead to the busy times so you're actually doing it when you have the time and the energy rather than setting yourself up for failure because you're not thinking about the big picture.
Yeah. Something I've worked on that I feel like you'd have good advice on is being more realistic with how much time recurring tasks take, whether that's, preparing for an interview or just making a grocery list. But that is also a mental load thing to be like, oh, well, when am I going to do that? Like, oh, how long is that really going to take me? Do you have any good, simple suggestions for simplifying that for women?
Absolutely. So I always say track your time. Time yourself on how long it takes you to do something so that the next time you do it, you know how much time to block out for it. And you can use your iPhone. You can use I love the app. It's also a website called Toggle Track. It's free. So for instance, I know that putting out my newsletter takes a certain amount of time. So I can block that time out on my calendar, actually on my to-do list because I don't put tasks in my calendar, but I can block it out and I know how long it takes. And sometimes I'll give myself a little extra time and then I feel really motivated if I did it, sooner or quicker. You know what I'm saying? And it's very simple. It's just thinking ahead and thinking about what are those repeatable things. And just all you need to do is know how much to block out for it, how much time to block out for it. And then you're making realistic to-do lists because you know how much time things take you. It's really simple, but a lot of people don't do that.
Yeah, I know we're getting into the nitty-gritty a little bit, but I think it's not easy to do, but it's simple. But I will tell you that if you don't do that, it's easy to be unrealistic with what you're getting done. If it's a repeating task, there's no reason why you can't know on average how long it takes. And I love the idea of gifting yourself. Like I'm a big fan of scheduling, I call them peace breaks, like buffers, just so like no matter what, you've got more time. But I can picture myself giving myself 2 hours for something. And then if it only takes 90 minutes, that's such a peaceful feeling in my body versus like, oh, I scheduled half an hour to think I could do this between calls. And it's like you're under pressure. It's just not a good way to live.
You're absolutely right. And it's also exhausting.
Yes.
And it's not sustainable. I always say overestimate the amount of time you think something is going to take you. Like, let's say you haven't done it before and it's something new and you need to put it in your plan for the day. Always overestimate the amount of time. Because if you underestimate it every time, like you said, you're going to be exhausted and it's also not motivating. And again, you don't need to be hard on yourself if you don't get it done. But these are just very simple tricks that make such a big difference.
Yeah. I always like to leave people with a little bit of practical things that they can just go, hey, let me try this on for size. I know you talk about planning for tomorrow today. Can you explain that practice?
Yes. Okay. So when you sit down in the morning, if you don't know what your plan is for the day for your job or, if you're a stay-at-home mom, what you need to do for your kids, whatever it is, if you sit down at your desk and you don't have a plan, There's decision fatigue, which you mentioned, which I think is exhausting. And we also underestimate how exhausting that is. So if you plan tomorrow today, at the end of your work day or the end of your day, whenever you choose to do it, you come up with a plan for tomorrow. Now, this doesn't have to be rigid. I teach time blocking. I believe that everybody can learn how to time block in a way that works for them. But if that doesn't jive with you, that's okay. But really plan out your day so that when you sit down in the morning, you have no decision fatigue. You're not wasting any time. And I'm not talking about wasting time to optimize it. I'm talking about wasting time to have as much energy as possible. And you'll sit down and you'll know what you need to do. And then if you have a plan, you won't be as tempted to go down those rabbit holes like social media or your texts or anything like that if you have a plan. Again, it has to work for you. That's why everybody I work with, it's a really customized system for what works for them. But I just think that decision fatigue is a real thing. And when you plan tomorrow at the end of your day, it just eliminates all of it.
Yeah. Something that's worked really well for me is to at least plan my anchors, like my most important things. And for example, I have a big creative project right now, and I know that the best time for me to work on it is the morning. So if I didn't have that planned and kind of held, it would be very tempting for me to do other less important work in the morning because, if I was just like, so it's a way to really protect your priorities. For you, it's that workout too. So
Absolutely. Yes. And I'm curious to know, do you have the most energy in the morning?
yes, I have the most energy and I just feel like my mind is the sharpest. So I know for me, I want to do cerebral tasks, my biggest heavy lifting cerebral tasks in the morning. I just don't, if I try to do something like that at 3, I just feel a little bit like, I don't know, it doesn't really work.
So you are the exact same as me. And I think the other takeaway that some people can leave today with is that think about your most difficult tasks and when you have the most energy and only tackle them during that time. Because every time you go against your energy cycles and you try to get a very difficult task done when you don't have energy, it will be less accurate, it will take you more time, and it will be a lot more exhausting.
Something I also just want to talk about, and I don't know if you can speak into this, but something I've read quite a bit about is how cognitively depleting task changing is. And I feel like the fact that when we have a plan that you're talking about, at least a couple anchors, we're also not like checking an email, then answering a phone call. Like if I have my writing time set aside and I see my sister's calling in the corner of my eye, I'm like, nope. Do you know about that research? Can you
Oh,
add
I
on it?
I
Yeah.
know all about this
Yeah. Tell us
research
about it.
because, yeah, so Cal Newport, he's a productivity expert. He's written many books. He talks about this a lot. He calls it context switching, and it is the reason why we can't be productive. And it's just back and forth, and it's very frenetic, and that's also depletes your energy. But he says, or I think there was a study that said that every time you switch from the current task you're working on to another task, it can take up to 24 minutes to get back into the original task. So it's not only not productive, but it also is exhausting. And so the less you context switch, the better. And if you plan tomorrow today, then you're not as likely to context switch because you're not questioning, okay, well, what do I need to do next? Oh, well, I don't know. I'll check social media or I'll check my texts because I'm not sure what I need to do. So this is a real issue. And I believe that it is one of the reasons why people cannot be productive or get things done because they are context switching all day.
I really think that it's been exacerbated in our digital age when people are just inundated and our people are reached in so many ways. Do you have any advice for how people? Let me preface this by saying that I have worked in industries where I have to have my email on because I have to be reachable if there is a fire. And I just want to acknowledge that for some people, they can't always protect their time. But I do feel like there are some tools we can use to not context switch all the time with texts, notifications, emails. What's your best advice there?
So I say if you're able to turn off notifications, if you don't need to be responding to texts and emails so quickly, turn off all of your notifications. And instead of the phone controlling you, you control the phone. Instead of your email controlling you, you control your email and you're choosing when to check it instead of reacting to all the pings, right? But if you can't, let's say you have a job, and I do have clients where a lot of people have to be on their email and reacting to texts because they might lose business. Okay. And that's real, right? So I say, even if you can make a 15-minute block, even short blocks of sustained attention will be better than every minute checking, and responding. But I know this is really hard and it's a challenge for people, but I will also say for people who think that they need to respond right away, maybe you don't. Maybe people can wait. I can't tell you how many people apologize to me that they delayed emailing me. Like, I'm sorry there was a delay in my email. I never apologize for taking time to email somebody back. I also don't have an out of office explaining it. And that's fine if you do, totally fine, unless I'm on vacation. But I just think that people can wait for responses. And again, some people can't. This is very on a case by case basis. But I think that we need to rethink that. And I think that we're so used to quick responses, and we need to train ourselves to actually stop doing that when we can.
I agree. And maybe I would say just have a little rebel moment and roll the dice a little bit. I tend to play a loose game with email and I will check it in chunks unless there's something I know is like really time sensitive. And I'll tell you, no one has ever been like, "Where'd you go, Whitney?" And in some ways, I think it starts to give other people permission. And if you're in a workplace, you want people to have mental bandwidth to focus and not have that interruption. So it's kind of a leadership move, really, right?
Absolutely. You'll be more productive and you'll get more done if you're not responding all the time.
What's something else that comes to mind when you picture that woman who is living with more ease, getting to the things she wants to do, just feels like more time abundant? Because I think we all want that. What do you think her secrets are that we haven't talked about?
I think it's back to not everything needs to get done today. I really think that that's so important because I think that leads to so much overwhelm and stress, whether it's in your work or your personal life.
I'm wondering if you have any rituals for women that almost give themselves permission to stop when they've done what they said they were going to commit to that day. We both know we're both mothers, we both have jobs. There's always going to be something on our to do lists.
Mhm.
And at some point, you have to just be like, okay, this is enough. I'm going to enjoy my evening. It's hard to turn it off.
So it's interesting. I just got this question yesterday in this admin hour thing that I do every month where people can work for an hour and then they ask me questions. And they said, how do I turn it off at the end of the day? And I told them that it gets easier once you learn how to plan your day and make realistic to-do lists because you don't end the day feeling like you have so much more that you need to carry over to the next day or that you didn't get done. And it's easier to switch off because you're actually being realistic with the time you had. Now, you might not get everything done, and that's totally fine, but you've put more thought into it and it's more realistic. And so you don't feel as overwhelmed at the end of the day. And you also learn to be compassionate with yourself, which I think is really important. That helps you be able to switch off. And I think also making a rule for yourself is sometimes helpful. I'm not tempted to go back to my computer at the end of the day, but I've also done a lot of work practicing this. But I think if you say, you know what, I'm not going to work past 6 p.m. and whatever I don't finish, it's fine. But again, if you prioritize correctly, the things that you may not have gotten done, or if you had to pivot, they changed, you won't feel as overwhelmed. Like, I think it
Yeah.
all starts from the planning.
Yeah. You don't have as many dangling ends that because you were more realistic. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I know we're coming up on time, but is there anything that's on your heart to share? Just picturing this woman who wants to slow down and wants to really get clear and prioritize so that she can make sure she's present and enjoying the things that matter most.
Yeah, I would say document as much as you can in a repeatable way so that you don't need to spend time thinking about things that are very easy to do. Again, I'll go back to the whole parenting is really hard thing. I think it's so hard. Let's make it easier on ourselves. Document things. Don't feel like you need to get everything done today and really pace things.
In this area of time management, I always like to end my episodes with an opportunity for reflection. So when it comes to kind of these secrets of more time abundant women or tools that help us feel calm, like we've got a plan, what's one question women could be asking themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I say it's not necessarily a question, but I always try to get to know them better because I think that in order to have planning processes and time management and being productive work for you, you need to understand yourself better. How do you respond to inner and outer expectations, things like that? So really take the time and get to know yourself and be patient with yourself and try to understand yourself so that you can realize what works best for you and your brain. Because a lot of women think they need to fit into a mold, or just because something works for a friend, it will work for them. And that's not true. And so I really think that taking the time to get to know yourself and understand yourself will just make a huge difference.
That's beautiful. That's a great
Okay.
place to end. And Ron, I know people are going to want to follow you, join your workshops, bring you into their lives. So where's the best place to connect and learn more about your work?
So I'm on Instagram at Workflows by Ronna. You can email me. I love emails and questions from people. Ronna at workflowsbyronna.com. I have a website, workflowsbyronna.com, and I'm also on LinkedIn at Ronna Belinky.
Okay, great. We'll capture that in the show notes. Ronna, this was informative. I know it's going to leave everyone feeling inspired to reclaim their time and energy a bit. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It was great.
I'm so glad you joined me today. If you're looking for more, feel free to connect with me on Instagram at @WhitneyWoman. And if you enjoyed the show, I invite you to support me by leaving a review or sharing it with a friend. Hope you have an inspired day.